and this is episode 50! Can you believe it? 50 episodes. It's hard to believe that a year and a half ago I started a podcast, and now we're at 50 episodes, and this one was with my co-host Adam Ellsbrook, and we talked about custom snare drums. So we kind of took we took several paths on this podcast. We kind of went, we talked about what kind of drums we like personally. Then we kind of, talked about the different types of custom drums you can do, stave, and then people who just kind of take a blank shell and then, create it from there. And, just some of the more boutique style drums as well. So it was a mix of custom snare drums, but also just custom drums in general, because they both go hand in hand. But it was more on the snare drum end. So we talked about several different brands. I just kind of want to give a shout out to these companies because they just do some really awesome work and been real supportive of the podcast. So here we go. AJ Drums, King Drums, which we just had Alex from King Drums on, so we talked about his stuff. AT Drum Works, RT Customs, DR Customs, Love Custom Drums, ANF Drum Company, AQ10 Custom, which is like a metal wood hybrid drum, Masters of Maple, Salt Drums, LB Custom Drums, M4 Drum Company, Spiro Music Works. Sorry about that. And then we had one more thing we kind of talked about. Let me get them all up. Franklin Drums. Let's see. Roulette, AMD Drums, 7, Angel Drum Company, Q Drums, Truth Custom Drums, Outlaw Drums, Davies Drum Company, Vessel Drums, and Bellwether, and just a bunch of other ones. Era Drum Company, I can't remember if I said that one or not. But yeah, it's just a great episode, so please check it out. So here it is, episode 50, with my co-host me and Adam discussing custom drums, or custom snare drums. See you guys, see you on the other side. Welcome everybody back to the Drumheads podcast. My name is Daniel, and I am joined again by my co-host Adam. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Oh, it's summer, and I'm not a fan. Not a fan of summer at all. Are you a summertime? What's your season?
My season's definitely fall.
There we go. Right answer.
We this year we jumped over spring, I think, is the problem. Where I am up in Massachusetts, we did a lot of winter, cooler winter weather, and even 3 weeks ago it was, mornings it was 40 degrees out, and then today, we're pretty warm today, but I'm sure we're not as hot as you are.
Yeah, 92 degrees, and it's already June. I'm like, this is nonsense. So, I'm like you. I'm a fall guy. That's my season.
Absolutely. That'll put your drum heads out of tune, this humidity and.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was moving some drum stuff just the other day, and I just picked something up, and I had it in my van for 5 minutes. I ran in to get something, and I brought it in, and I'm like, let's see how the tuning is on this. And I'm like, wow, it really got out of tune really quick. So,
right,
yeah, it's a battle, that's for sure, with tuning and weather and all that nonsense. But so, are you on summer vacation right now?
I am not.
Oh, you're not?
Yeah, my vacation doesn't start until the 22nd, so next Wednesday.
Oh, okay. I know my mom is. Her last day of school was yesterday, I think. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so she's super excited about that. So, all right. Well, the discussion today is custom snare drums. So, I figured what the best thing to start is kind of. Do you own multiple snare drums, Adam?
I do, but none of them are really worth talking about. Well, my main snare drum is really nice. It came with my kit. Mm-hmm. So, my kit, it's a Crush kit, mm-hmm. Crush Drum Company, mm-hmm. and it's the Sublime E3. So it's the snare drum that comes with that. So I think it's a 10-ply maple snare drum with re-rings. But I mean, it's nothing sort of unusual. And Crush does make a lot of really awesome snare drums, but so there's nothing unusual about it. The other snare drums that I have are sort of like little workhorses that I bring to like little practice sessions and stuff. So I've got a couple. I have like some like Japanese made, I don't know, 80s snare drum that was probably off of a kit originally that I've refinished. I've taken the wrap off and put some nice wood on it. It looks all right, but it's really nothing significant. And then 2 other sort of small little piddly things that I just picked up along the way.
Yeah, I hear you. My main snare drum is my Stuart Copeland snare drum.
Cool.
That was the best gift ever. My wife gave it to me. She got an engagement ring. I got the Stuart Copeland snare drum. So I figured, that's a good exchange right there.
There's no problem with that.
Yeah. And everyone's like, your wife got you that? Your to-be wife? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, she's a keeper for sure. I'm like, yeah, she is a keeper. And then my other snare, I have 2 other ones. I have like a Pacific drum, like a 10-inch piccolo. I think it's maple. It's 6 by 10. And I picked it up at a pawn shop for I think $80.
Yeah.
And it's all right. It does, if you're doing some cool jungle beats, it works. And then I have a 12-inch Birch Thomas snare drum that it's a good secondary snare drum, but it also has you could use it as a main snare drum if you wanted to, if you were doing some kind of funk or wouldn't say rock. It would not push through, but anything other than rock it'd be a good fit for. But for custom drums, what would be your custom drum?
Well, it's kind of tough to say. I mean, there's so many neat ones. It depends on what avenue I was going to. There's a lot of like stave drums that I think are really awesome. And in fact, what's his name? Fraser Murray from Murray Drums. He just posted one the other day, and it's actually earlier today. And he called it the latest one to roll off the production line. And it's just a gorgeous drum. And that guy, Fraser Murray, he just, in my opinion, he just knows what he's doing. He if you go onto YouTube and you search like how to make a custom or how to make a stave snare drum, you're just pounded by a bunch of his different videos, and he just really fills it up. But I'm in the process of trying to make my own ply drums. So that's really taken my attention. And the other thing that I'm interested in, but I'm not sure if I'd actually like the sound because I haven't played one in a long time. But I'm really interested in more like metal snares. So like in particular, I have my eye on a couple copper snares that I think look really awesome.
Yeah, copper. That's got a unique sound for sure.
Yeah.
And what did John Bonham use? Did he just use a steel snare drum?
He used a Superphonic, so it's what is it? Brass with
brass. Okay, there you go.
Yes, and he actually I forget the full story, but he was like kind of particular about it too. There's like a certain year I think where Ludwig made they kind of changed the metals they were using, and he liked it before the change, but not after. So when as he was kind of going through, he made sure he had one. Like a certain serial number to get that sound that he was really looking for.
Oh, cool! Yeah. I just Googled. What did you say, Fraser Murray?
Yeah.
I just Googled some of his drums, and wow, they are. Gosh, these things are beautiful.
And so, like, what I like about him is he's such like a personable guy. When I first started trying to look into making stave drums, I had a bunch of questions, and I just sent him a message, and he sent me one back like 3 hours later, and he's just like, oh yeah, just do this. Or he kind of told me what he was doing. And he sent me links to videos that he's made about how he does it. And I mean, if anyone's interested in trying to make their own stave drum, he basically walks you through the process from start to finish.
Nice.
You got to have a little bit of like sort of technical ability to figure some stuff out. He shows you the like the jigs that he uses and like the way he sets stuff up. But I don't think I'm trying to remember if he actually goes through and shows you how to build the jigs. I don't think he does. But he shows you what he's using, and you could potentially try to sort of like reverse engineer it.
I know. If it was up to me, I would get pissed off. I start cursing at it, like, the hell with this, I'm out. And
Right.
It's amazing the things people do. So stave drums, now since you have a little bit of expertise in that, how does that come about? Like, is it, I know it's like pieces of wood and you've cut a groove into them so you can round it out, I guess you could say.
Uh-huh.
And then it's such an interesting process, and I don't quite get it.
Well, everybody kind of does their own thing, and that's what I'm like, being part of the Custom Drum Builders group that I am. Everyone's always kind of posting what they do, and everyone's doing something a little different. And like Fraser kind of has his own sort of following, I guess. He, in my opinion, I don't know, I haven't known him that long, but I don't really know him, but haven't really followed him that long. But he, what he's doing seems to be something that other people are like, oh yeah, I can do that. So now there's almost like this school that sort of follow what he does and like tries to use his technique. But like, so the first step is getting what you're going to use to be your staves. So it's, a couple inch thick piece of wood, and, put the angles on it so that when you stack them all up in a ring, they all abut nice and, properly sort of sealed with each other. And gluing all those together. And that's a very similar process to how I make my dodecahones. And that's what got me on thinking I could probably make staves in the first place, is that I sort of got that process a little more refined along the way. And so that's like the first step. And people have different schools of thought in how they're going to do that. So like some people use a table saw to cut like 15 or 7.5 degree edges on each one of their staves. Some people use routers. Some people use a bandsaw. All these sort of like different approaches. There's even some like router jigs out there that allow you to like almost make like a tongue and groove, or like a finger joint, where even with that degree between them, they have like interlocking pieces. So like that is one area where people just start off doing it differently. And then from there, once you have that formed in sort of more of like a hexagonal shape or something, it's got all like the squared off edges a little bit, you got to get it into round. And that's, I think, where Fraser's technique is really kind of cool, because he basically builds this way of putting an axle through what would be the center of your drum. And he spins it like a wheel over like a table mounted router. So like the router bit sticks up and it slowly just eats off a little bit. And at first it takes just the corners off, and then it makes it a little rounder, and he adjusts the router. So it eventually makes it just kind of round on the outside. And then he's got another jig that he puts a little handheld router and routes out the inside. And when you think about like, oh, I could never build a drum, it's such a complicated process. And then you see what he's doing, you're like, well, that's kind of just plywood and stuff from Home Depot and like a Ryobi router or something. Like for $100 worth of tools and like plywood and nuts and bolts, you could probably make something that loosely resembles a snare drum shell. And then the skill really comes into perfecting it and sort of lowering those tolerances that allow you to do it well. And
then adding the bearing edges and all that as well.
That's a whole other art form in itself. And then the other thought too is that some people like Tony from Bellwether Drums, he spins his drums on a lathe. So that's just a whole other school of thought and a whole other art form in itself. There's some precision you can get there that you can't get with a router. I know if you look at any of those Bellwether snares, they all have like those super thin like inlays of steel or whatever he's putting in there. And his precision and his craftsmanship is unparalleled. So that guy's just making some really beautiful stuff, and I'm like, man, you are setting the bar so ridiculously high. I don't know. But he gets top dollar for his drums too. But he gets probably compensated well for how much time he puts into it, because it takes him months maybe to make one drum sometimes, depending on how much time you can put on it. But.
Well, and I've noticed with the whole custom drum scene that's been going on, it seems like, I would say probably the past 4 years, but especially the last two, it's like there's so many different people doing so many different things, and there seems like to be three types of like people who like to do custom snare drums. You got the guys that like to do the stave, then you got the guys who do the reclaim, which I think is really cool.
Right.
Like Outlaw Drums.
Outlaw's amazing.
Yeah,
they do some really awesome stuff.
They'll find like old church benches with like nail holes, and they'll still incorporate it into the shell, which is so just wicked awesome. And then you got your solid who just take solid pieces of wood, and like that seems intense right there. Taking one piece of like tree log and routing it out to a drum is just amazing. And then of course you got your guys who just go buy the shells. I'm blanking on the name of the company that you can just buy blank shells from.
Keller shell?
They're Keller.
Yeah.
And just, they'll trick it out with, a custom paint job and, offset lugs or something like that. But that seems like to be the main kind of ways you can customize the snare drum.
Right.
But I've noticed people seem to be gravitating more toward the stave drums. I've noticed
a lot of custom builders who do it sort of at home or in a small shop will do that, and I think, I'm not 100% sure why. I think that process of knowing that it was like theirs from start to finish, like they started with raw material, and then to like, instead of, for example, buying a Keller shell and just like cutting it down to size and drilling holes in it and painting it, like it's a little more like, this is really mine because I built it from the ground up, instead of like getting like, I bought a bunch of parts and put them together. But and then there are a couple guys out there that make their own ply shells, but that, I think people get so sort of upset with that process because it's hit or miss, and it's like so much time to like lay everything out and glue it all up and put it in a mold, and then it comes out and there's like a ripple in it, and you're like, oh man, I got to start all over. Yeah. So it's kind of a heartbreak sometimes, but. And
if you're someone like. The dog is out.
Right.
Yeah. No, even with the major.
You're gonna have to give me a second here.
Yeah, you're fine.
I left the back door open so she can look out of it. And have a neighbor that is walking around. Apparently.
Oh yeah.
And neighbors are not allowed to do that. Okay. What an idiot. All right.
No, you're fine. I think. But yeah, like I guess if you're like one of the major manufacturers, you can if you got to mess up, you just throw it out and start over again. But if you're a garage do-it-yourself kind of thing, you can't take those losses lightly.
Yeah.
And and I don't begrudge anybody who wants to go the Keller shell route, but there's something about the stave drums, like you said, they're very organic and they're very personable.
Yeah.
And seeing, and you see these guys on Instagram who like show like from start to finish a drum, and you're like, that's just such an amazing thing to do. And and I think drummers are kind of getting to this point. I think we talked about maybe a couple weeks ago about how the drum heads are not fitting these drums anymore because people are going to these different methods of making drums, which is such an interesting thing. I just talked to someone the other day, and they were having that same problem with the Evans heads not fitting on their custom snare drum.
Yeah.
And I think they're having to compensate, that shows you the impact of these custom drum makers on the overall larger market. Like, oh, these guys are making a dent in this field. We got to make something that will compensate because we're going to lose drummers in the process. So
yeah. And then, you're getting, I don't think I'm very unique in the sense that, like, I watch a couple YouTube videos on how to make a drum, and I'm like, I could probably pull it off, right? So, like, I think we're getting a lot of those guys that are like, you know what, I could probably pull it off. It's like, it's almost like maybe 20 years ago, it was like this pedestal, like, oh, you know how to make a drum? I could never even imagine how to do that. And now, because, like, we have that technology where, people are making drums with GoPros on, that you can see what they're doing, like, and you're like, oh, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on too. But
now, when it comes to the woods that people use, do you like a certain type of wood for a drum? Maple, birch, or is it kind of like, I just like the sound of the drum. It doesn't matter to the wood.
I'm not too particular. Usually it's here. My other part is that I don't feel like I have enough experience with all the different types of wood, so I wouldn't be able to say I like this one better than anything else. And then you get into like different heads and then different tunings, and if you put a wooden rim on it or a metal rim or whatever, and it's all going to have an effect on how it sounds. So for me, it's kind of like I couldn't ever build a drum, especially where I am now, and like plan on what it's going to sound like. I'd have to like build a drum and hit it and go like, oh, that one sounds good, great, or oh man, that one doesn't sound like I thought it would. But I wouldn't be able to say I'm going to build a drum that has this particular sort of aspect to it. But some people obviously can do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like I like, or at least I think I like those like darker, deeper tones. So
like
I do like wooden tone drums as much as my sort of love interest right now would be like a copper drum. I really like the tone of a nice wooden snare drum. But
can you, when you listen to a song, I know some people, they can like oh, he's using a wood snare or he's using a metal snare. I have that, I'll talk with my wife. I'm like, I think that's a wood snare drum, especially when it comes to like Dave Matthews Band. I would try to figure out what kind of snare, because Carter Broford's notorious for using like 8 different types of snare drums on a record, and it's always fun to try to figure out what it is,
I mean, I feel like I can tell the difference between a wood and a metal snare. I think there's that sort of overtone at the end, that sort of ring out of a metal snare, and that you don't really get as much with the wood. But also, I mean, tunings. If you're tuning really high, you can get some sounds out of a wooden snare that are I don't know. It's it could go either way.
I think I think you're getting at the point. With wood snares, you have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to tuning. I think, especially if you're tuning lower. Metal snare drums, in my opinion, don't really sound that great when they're tuned super low. I think there's too much, like that overtone is just way too much, and by that point, you might as well just put a blanket over it because it's just going to keep humming. And something about a wood snare drum, the sustain when it's tuned low it's actually less. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know. It's in my preference. I like a very pitchy snare drum. I'll try to tune my snare drums low if I'm playing with a certain type of music, and my natural inclination is just to go higher, just because I guess of my favorite drummer, and given the drum I have, I guess would be the thing as well. Because most people are like, wow, you have that cranked really tight. I'm like, well, let me tune it low, and they're like, ugh, that sounds horrible. I'm like, yep, it's got to be tight. So it's drumming is such it's one of those things you can never really nail it down 100%. As much as I try to get that Stuart Copeland sound, I think only him and in the way he, unless I have Stuart Copeland's drum tech tune my drum, that's the only way it's ever going to sound that like his. I'm going to tune mine a certain way, and you're going to tune yours a certain way, and so it's all subjective. Is I guess what I'm trying to get at.
And it even sounds different, like where you are. Like so, behind the drum playing it sounds different than the front end. Like if you're like two rows back watching a drummer play, it sounds different. And I mean, toms especially, you get a lot more sound out of the resonant heads when you're out front that you don't think about as much when you're sitting behind them. But so a lot of that. But I don't know. And then the like thickness of the shell makes a huge difference too. So like I've heard ply drums that are a ply snare that's 8 plies thick, and then one that's 15, and I mean just like everything about it's a completely different beast. So I don't know. It's kind of like where you really make your like your own personal style, I think, on a drum kit. Like you can kind of fiddle around with heads and toms and tuning and get some, pretty standard sounds. I've never like listened to a record and be like, oh man, that would have sounded better if that guy used Evans heads instead of Aquarian, right?
Yeah.
But like, it's the snare that really, that's sort of like the meat and potatoes of what's going on.
Oh,
with
yeah. It's the clapping beat,
Right.
If any concert you go to, that's what everybody's clapping to. So it's an extremely important and vital part of the drum set. And there's just so many, like the depths. You could go. I've seen snare drums that are like 3.5 inches deep. The ones that go down to like 10.
Right.
And you can cover the whole gambit these days. And luckily with the living in the day of the internet, and Instagram, you can hear things in pretty good quality where 10 years ago you really had to look for it, or actually see it in person,
Yeah.
And I'm curious of people who buy custom snare drums and don't like work with the person who's making it.
Yeah.
Because I interviewed the guy from King Drums a while back, and he was talking about when he makes a custom snare drum for somebody, he kind of gets in their head, like what kind of music they're listening to, what is their band they're currently in sound, what kind of sound are they making, and is this drum going to complement or, all that, and, you're kind of jumping out on a ledge, putting all that onto somebody, and that could be I could imagine it'd be very stressful to the maker to get it right.
Right. And the other thing, it's kind of the exact opposite side of that, is I remember when I used to cruise around SJC Drum's website a little more. Mm-hmm. They had this feature, and I don't know if they still have it, but it was it was called a grab bag or something, mm-hmm. where you just like, yes, I want a snare drum, and they just kind of like mail you one, without
the random. Like, we're just going to pick one?
It's like, I'll send you a snare drum. And you're like, well, is it metal? Is it wood? Is it thick? Is it thin? Is it 15-inch diameter or 10? I don't know, but I'm going to get a snare drum with SJC on the side of it. And I don't know if I could ever, because they're not cheap either. They're like $300 or $400.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to randomly put $400 on the table, and I'll let you guys send me whatever you want.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. If I'm putting $400 into something, it's I'm going to be specific with it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, looking at, do you follow Snare Drum Freak on Instagram?
I don't, but I probably should.
This guy, I want to know what he does for a living, because he owns probably, I would say, 50 different snare drums.
Yeah. Just
snare drums, just alone. He's got like a shit ton of cymbals everywhere, all like custom made, but he's got like every kind of imaginable snare drum you could imagine. He's got, limited edition Yamahas and Tamas. He's got that cool Peisty Jeff. Is it? It was John Bonham's drum check. I'm blanking on his last name. Orchard something.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, he's got the one where the guy would take the recycled. He would recycle the Peisty cymbals and put it into a snare and make a snare drum out of it. I think Danny Carey from Tool used it, and just all these incredible snare drums. And I guess if you're a studio musician, you would want that. You would want to be like, hey, let's switch this drum real quick, and let's get this sound. Okay, maybe it's not working. Let's go over here and grab this one. And, I think a lot of drummers are trying to find that one snare drum that's so versatile you can use it in any type of music, and I don't think I've ever found one that I can just use exclusively for versatility. Have you?
Well, that's kind of like where I am with the one I have, the drum that came with my kit. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, I really like it. It's I like it so much that I never bought another snare since I got it, and that was 3 or 4 years ago. So it's 7 inches deep and it's a 14-inch diameter. Mm-hmm. So it's a big, thick drum, really, and it's I use it on my acoustic gigs, like when I'm playing with like a folky kind of band, mm-hmm. and it sounds good with brushes there. The band that I play in more regularly now, we're just a cover band, but we do stuff like ranging from funk songs to classic rock songs and all that kind of stuff, and it fits right in there. I have no problem with that. And like, I've never had anyone say negative things about it. And like, I mean, there's times where I'm looking at a drum and like, I should probably buy that snare drum because I really like it. But I'm like, I don't know if I'd play it because I really like the sound of the one I have.
Uh-huh.
But so I mean, it fits what I play, but it's like I think it would sound weird if I tried to do like, I'm thinking of like some like 311 songs where he's got like a really high pitched like snare drum. I don't know if I could really get mine to recreate that. But.
Sing, and yeah, well, and it's funny that you bring him up because like I've been his biggest like critic. I love 311. It's like my second favorite band, but like his snare drum sound has like gotten lower over the records, and it's driving me insane. I'm like, Chad, would you please tune that bastard up a little higher? You know, but you know, it's just, I guess I'm so used to the old 311.
Yeah, I was thinking of this in my head. I was playing the song Down when I came up with 311 because of that that like high pitched crack he's got coming out of that drum.
If you listen to the stuff now, it's still in the mid range, but it's not as cracky as it used to be. But that's just personal preference to me, I guess. But back to, I guess, with custom snare drums. Now, there's so many different ways you can detail the outside aesthetically. What's your preference? You kind of more of the classy, you know, vintage kind of look, or do you know, like the woo, let's just go nuts kind of look?
I like sort of a timeless look that I'll tell. Well, one of them is a little more obscure, but some of the snares that have really caught my eye. Outlaw is one of them, and what I like about Outlaw snare drums is I really like their badge, their logo. So if you've seen it, it's a throw to the U.S. Forestry Service. It's a sort of a copy of their like patch, because they do a lot of sort of like I believe they do like sustainability sort of advocacy about like wood use and like they use particular woods for particular reasons to promote like forestry and all that other stuff. So I really like that concept, and it's just a classy looking badge. You know, it's clear. You know what it is. It's not like modern. It's kind of timeless, and they have like that exposed sort of like wood grain look, and it's just kind of nice. I really like that. The other snare drum that I like that I almost picked up a couple of them. Like I almost picked up one day, and then a year later I almost picked up another one, and it's one of the pork pie snares. It's called the Patina Brass.
Oh yes, those are so cool.
It's got that like green sort of like dirty penny look to it, and I just kind of like that look too. But it's I wouldn't say it's like a like a timeless classic look. There's something a little progressive about that approach. But at the same time, I don't know.
It's vintage, but it also has a very modern look to it at the same time.
It's almost paisley in a way, and it's just kind of nice. But so I kind of like that. I kind of like that plainness. I'm not too flashy. I know when I first started hanging out with Scott Chaprari, I went into he's got his own little like wood shop, like workshop space, and in the back he's got like his drum room, and he has this wall, and I didn't count them, but there's got to be 12 or 13 snares. Just like he's built this like rack system, so it's like just like all these snares just coming out of his wall. It's like going to the snare drum section of Guitar Center or something. There's just like 12 snares there, but they're all SJCs, and he's got some that are like acrylic with lights in them, some that are hybrid with like wood up near like where the bearing edge would be, and then an acrylic stripe in the middle, and I think he's got some metal ones, and he's got some just like really unique snares, and just one-offs, and some that he like did these really fantastic paint jobs on, and they're all fantastic. But I think for myself, just something kind of just like wood looking and plain. Like I'll tell you, it's not an amazing drum kit, but the way that it was pictured, I just really liked it. And it was Ludwig had the Centennial kit a couple of years ago, and whenever that was advertised, they just had this like light, birch snare drum with it. So they had like a red sparkle kit with just like a white, like a light birch snare, or like a blue sparkle, and just that sort of contrast, and knowing that snare is like just kind of different than the rest of the kit. I kind of like the way that looked, but I mean, I can't really see him anyway. You're sitting behind the drum. You're just looking at the drum head.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, and you know, when I see drummers play, I'm always like trying to pivot around like the stage and like trying to check out all their gear. And and the snare drum is such a important part, but you don't really see it at the same time because you know, depending on how close the drummer sits, you know, their legs are covering it, or you know, they're sitting super high, and it, you know, it's just position. So you're not, unless you have like a video camera, you can zoom in. You know, it's but I guess me personally, I like it to be kind of seen, but I've been really digging the acrylic kits that have the hybrid shells. Like they'll have like wood and then acrylic and then wood. Like AJP Percussion. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yeah.
That guy does some amazing work with the acrylic and the wood hybrids, and I think it would just be so rad to have one of those drums, because there's a drummer that endorses them, and he has one of those snare drums, and it, like, he does all these clinics, and it's just, he tunes it so many different ways, and it's got a very versatile sound to it, and but aesthetically it looks really rad because it's I think it's kind of the smoky kind of look to it, to the acrylic, and then the two wood pieces are that zebra wood.
Oh yeah.
And then with black nickel hardware, so it kind of like, you know, pops.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and there's just so many of these drum shops out that just do such amazing work. And I don't know if it's for the fact that there are certain other percussion companies that have kind of dropped off on their custom ability, I guess you could say, like SJC or Orange County Percussion. Their custability has gone down since you know, they came out.
Right. I know that SJC, when they went through that period where they were on the Prophet, I know there was a push by I forget the guy's name that is like the Prophet. There was a push for them to really introduce that, like, here's our, you know, our good, better, best line of drums. And I think that's really good for the company to have, like, here's like your standard or your benchmark, and then kind of like have other stuff come out. But I mean, SJC is making a whole bunch of really cool drums. I'm actually looking at their website right now. They have a lot of great looking snare drums that are in stock and ready to sell. But they're already made. You know, it's not like you could say, but you could call them up and ask for one, however you wanted it to.
Yeah,
but,
for sure. I think they were just trying to more or less just, you know, have those, like you said, they're ready, available. People can get one immediately, you know. And, where in the past you'd have to wait, you know. It could be weeks or it could be months. So it's you know, it's just, it's hit or miss with the custom ones. Cause
it's good to see, like, what's available too. So.
Yeah. Well, and you know, when I talked to King Drum, the guy, you know, said he takes sometimes 3 months to make a custom snare drum, which is incredible. But you know, in the craftsmanship as well, he did a glow in the dark one, which is really rad. I don't know if you've seen the. I don't know if it's just. My kid just came in and she's. Yeah. Shh. Can you go play? You can't go play. If you sit here, you gotta be quiet. We'll see if that happens.
Right.
But he, I don't know if it's it's not a paint, because when you look at the snare drum, it's just a wood grain, you know, finish, but then he turns the lights out and then it's glowing. So I don't know if it's just a clear lacquer you can get that just you put over it and you're good to go.
Right. That's pretty cool. I think SJC did a glow in the dark one recently too, because I remember on their Instagram they had a lights on and a lights off photo, and I don't think it was like the lights inside the drum, but the drum itself actually had a glow to it. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of the ones that go, you know, that have the lights in it, I wonder if the lights affect the sound. Like,
I would imagine there's a rattle somewhere.
Unless, I mean, I know like Pearl, you can get the drum lights built into your kit when you get it. But I was wondering, like, there's got to be some rattling going on in there. You know, maybe if you're doing a live show, I wouldn't necessarily want to record with those. But I could be wrong about the, you know, rattling. I don't know. I'm not really sure how those connect to the drum itself. but it does look cool aesthetically.
I'm currently on the bellweathersnaredrums.com, and man, this guy's out of his mind.
Yeah,
and good with stuff.
He
just
like I tagged him in one of the photos to and just going through and trying to find like one of his drums is so cool. And have you seen? There's another company, A&F Drum Company. Have you seen their stuff? It's like old.
I have.
It's old school vintage, which is. I had one person comment. It's like, why does this drum set look like a piece of crap? I'm like, well, it's kind of like a throwback to the old '30s drums.
Yeah.
And using like raw materials to make them, which is super rad.
There's a guy. I'm trying to find his stuff here, but there's a guy near where I live who makes a snare drum that has, I believe, it's a 14-inch batter head and then a 13-inch resonant head. So the drum itself tapers from being fat at the top, so it's like a little funnel almost. But
I have not seen it. That's pretty interesting.
I know let me check. I know where to find it because it's for sale at the same store that I sell my cajones out of.
There you go.
So if I go to that store's website, I'm sure I can find it.
And there's another company who's doing a lot of cool stuff with the Accu. I was about to say where I work, AccuCare. It's not that. Accu 10 where is it? I'm trying to get to it. I'll just spell it because I'm horrible pronouncing. ACOUTIN Custom Accu10. Sure, Custom. Yeah. They do the hybrid of the metal, and the metal part is metal, and then the top pieces are wood.
Right. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And talk about getting two different distinct sounds of materials for a drum. Yeah. He I think he made he's gotten like a contract or something with one of the bigger distributors for having that unique. Because I know you can get a snare drum like that from DW, the Edge drum that has the two, you can have the hybrid metal and wood shells.
Yeah.
But also I like the vented snares.
Yeah.
DW had a really cool one back in the day. You could slide the vents on and off.
That's a pedo.
Shh. Go take it in the living room.
No pedo.
Yeah. They had they're going outside. They're excited, even though they've probably been outside all day. They made a vent. The vents you could open and close. Did you ever see that one? I think it was probably about 10 years ago. It was made actually in conjunction with that May miking company. The
May mics, the internal mics there.
The guy worked with the guy from DW to have so you could have different sounds just closing those vents on and off. So you could have the open sound with the vents on, very tight sound with the vents off, which. You don't see a lot of vented drums these days. I know Orange County Percussion did a lot, but they were about the only ones. It seems like it was kind of a fad that kind of came and went.
You know who did? I don't know what I was going to say. No, I do know what I was going to say. SJC drums. I talk about them too much probably, but they
it's all right.
They did this drum where they had the F holes that you'd get in a violin.
Mm-hmm.
And it had the internal lug, so they had almost a couple plies on the inside. Then there was this air chamber between plies where your lugs actually were, and then there was this outer series of plies, so you couldn't even see the lugs on the drum. And it had these really beautiful violin F holes, I think they're called F holes. That sounds like a weird thing to say, but they had those in there too, and it was just wow, that thing's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. The limits are, there's no limits when it comes to, how you can customize these drums these days.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I was trying to look back and see, who had custom snare drums. And it wasn't really until, I would say the mid 90s that, you had drummers getting custom snare drums. And that was, pretty much from the Orange County percussion side.
Yeah.
And Travis Barker, that was, he brought it to the mainstream, I guess. And being the owner as well, he had a vested interest in it as well.
I think one of the first drums that I remember being a custom drum, like seeing like somebody's own, I remember like the Anton Fig snare drum was always this drum that like always stood out in my mind. Like, wow, that thing looks amazing, and like a bunch of people are playing it, and it was just a great drum when that came out. So I'm just poking around on the internet really quick, and I found that drum company. It's called Castle Drum Company.
Castle, yes, I have heard of Castle.
And they're doing that thing where you get the 14 on the top and the 13 on the bottom, and it, like he's billing it as like being like the best of both worlds. You get that snap and the pop of the 13, but you get that like tuning ability of the 14. It's kind of neat, but he's local. I'm not trying to figure out exactly where he is, but he's somewhere close to me. And I'm surprised that I find I'm like, oh, look at this drum company, it's so awesome. Then I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's like 4 miles away from where I live. That's been happening a lot.
I wish that was the case for me. It's like I've tried to like find the ones close to me, and it's like 2 hours away, 3 hours away. I'm like, dang it.
I've actually sent an email to Castle Drums once, can I come and like watch you do stuff and like just be in your presence and see how you're doing stuff? Not because I want to recreate it. I just like want to understand it better. And I did the same thing to a company called Calderwood Percussion. They're out of Boston, just north of Boston, I think, a little, maybe even west of Boston. But what got my attention with them is they did a video for the 2x4 snare drum.
Oh yeah.
So they show up with like an 8-foot long 2x4 stud and just like cut it into staves, and they built lugs, like a snare throw, snare butt. They got like wooden hoops, and wooden lugs all out of like one 2x4, and they built this drum, and it's pretty awesome. You're watching the video and you're like, wow, they're just like going to town building this drum. And like you're listening to the music that they're playing and stuff, and it's kind of groovy, and you're having a great time, and you're just watching them build this drum. And then at the end, like the music keeps going, and you realize that the music you're listening to is being played on the drum that they were building.
Oh, nice.
And you're like, wow, I never like thought that like that was going to be like a whatever. But I mean, you can buy a 2x4 for like well under $10.
Yeah. Well, and and that goes back to my point always. If you have, you could have the best kit money can buy, but if you don't tune it right, and depending on your heads, how old they are, it's gonna sound like garbage.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the wood is made out of. It's all about tuning and quality of the heads and all that. And you've got some environmental things as well, like humidity and stuff like that.
We were my band was playing an outside gig, a couple weeks ago, and it was really risky weather. It could have just downpoured at any second.
Oh yeah, I've been.
And I was like, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna bring my expensive really nice drum kit out to this. I mean, we're playing at some local bar. We weren't like at Woodstock or something. But it was a volunteer show too. We weren't doing it to get paid. We were doing it to help. It was like for a cause.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to leave my good drum kit at home, and I'm going to bring my practice kit that's in like the guitar player's basement. So I brought that, and I was like looking around, like, well, I don't want to bring my good snare. And I found I had this old CB 700 snare drum. I'm like, I'm going to bring it, and it's just like a cheapo little snare drum, but I had people come up to me like, hey, I like your new drum kit. It sounds great. And I'm like, oh, okay. You like my whatever. I'm playing like $50 worth of drums all together, and people are still thinking everything sounds fine. So
yeah, it's such a I've had people like that too. It's like, oh, what kind of snare drum is that? And I'm like, oh, it's just it's an old like 1980s student snare drum from the local music store, and they're like, oh, right. Wow, and because that's how I started out. I started with the snare drum. I had
Yeah.
I think it was a Ludwig, just student snare drum.
That's probably like the Acrolite.
Yeah, it was just like the Acrolite, and you had that big plastic case that came in.
Yep.
With
I had the same thing.
With the snare, and that thing weighed a ton.
A floppy rubber pad.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the floppy rubber pad. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And just lugging that around to the school, from the bus to the school, and feeling like your arms are just going to fall off. But it had a very musical quality to it. Looking back.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that drum because I had one of those. I had that Acrolite snare drum, and I used to play it on my kit when I was in high school. And I sold that kit and I sold that drum with it. And like I never thought much of it because it was like my student snare drum. Mm-hmm. And then I'm on like Drummers World forums and stuff, and I'm trying to recreate. People like, how do I recreate like John Bonham snare drum sounds? I don't have $800 for like a Ludwig Supraphonic and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And like guys just like get an Acrolite. They're super cheap. You can get them for $100. Like off somebody on Craigslist because their kid doesn't want to play it anymore. And it's it's 8 lugs instead of 10 or whatever, and it's a little thinner, but it really replicates that sound kind of well. And you're like, oh man, I just kind of got rid of mine.
Yeah.
But it's
what cracks me up is when you go on those Craigslists and browsing through, and you'll see people trying to sell their student snare drum for like $300. You're like, you're kidding.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's worth like $50 most. Or then you find like people who I remember I just graduated high school. I was like already in junior college, like at a local community college, and I was like, well, I'll just get rid of this. I need a couple bucks, and I remember selling it for like $150 because I guess I thought it was worth that, and apparently the mom thought it was worth that too. I'm like, yeah, $150, and I told a friend, they were like, you sold it for $150? I'm like, yeah, did I not sell it for enough? And they're like, no, you sold it way too high. I'm like, oops, I didn't know,
Yeah.
I thought that's what I paid for. I thought I paid $200 or something, but it's funny going on Craigslist. Some of the stuff people try to sell.
I get so frustrated sometimes because there's one out in my local Craigslist right now, and it's like a mismatched like heavy metal kit. It's got like it's like one like Pearl Export black bass drum and one like old Mapex black bass drum, and then like 2 10-inch toms and 2 12-inch toms and a 16-inch floor tom, and then just like cracked and broken like zillion ZHT cymbals all over the place. And the guy's like, $1,000. I'm like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Like if you sell that for $1,000, like you could, I don't know. It's like you buy it. Some people, I don't know how some people could list it like that, and then I don't know how some people would be like, "Whoa, I got to get that for $1,000."
Yeah, that is a deal.
Right? I could look just like Lars.
Yeah. But it's Craigslist is such hit or miss. Sometimes you're like, oh, I lucked out, and sometimes you like ask, and you're like, they're like, oh, well, it's really not that. I'm like, oh, so you just like took a picture offline and then said it was this? They're like,
yeah,
maybe. I'm like, yeah, okay, never mind.
I've poached it before, and like sometimes you can tell like if somebody knows what they're doing or not. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I feel a little guilty about it, but like one of my drum kits that I had a couple years ago and I've sold since then, it was I needed a practice kit for my buddy's basement, and I went on there and it's a Gretsch Blackhawk kit. And it's not like it's an entry level kit. It's a beginner kit, but I'm like, it's wooden shells, put some decent heads on it. It's great for my buddy's basement because like he throws parties all the time, and I know people are going to go down there and just beat on it. So I don't want to spend a lot of money. But when I found the Craigslist ad, the guy wrote like Aquarian drum kit for sale, and I'm like, all right, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. So obviously I had an Aquarian drum head on it, and that's all he saw. Mm-hmm. So I went over there, and he got like $100 maybe, I think I got it for, and it had all the hardware, pedals, like it was in really good shape, and it had a couple cymbals. It had like some Sabian B8 cymbals on it, and I took the hi-hat cymbals and the ride cymbal, and I brought those to Guitar Center, and they gave me like $50 for the hi-hat and a ride together. And I'm like, all right, so now the drum kit really just cost me $50, and to keep in my buddy's basement for $50 is not a problem.
Yeah,
and my current practice kit is a $50 drum kit, and it's a PV. I mean, people are like, PV made a drum kit? I'm like, yeah, they did.
Yeah, why not?
I bought one off some dude on Craigslist for $50, and it had like the hardware is really low quality, but again, it's in my guitar player's basement. So like, I just don't have to bring my drum. I bring my bass drum pedal and my cymbals, and I put it on all these stands that I bought off this guy for $50, and I put some decent heads on there. And I mean, it sounds kind of like hitting cardboard boxes, but whatever. I mean, we're getting our timing down, and it sounds good enough. For what we're using it for, and I don't have to lug my 26-inch bass drum up and down his basement stairs every week. So.
Which makes me think if I had a custom snare drum, I would be so paranoid of damaging it that it'd probably just sit on the shelf maybe. But I don't know. If I had all the money in the world, that would be a different story. I'd buy like a custom snare drum from like all these incredible companies we've talked about, but not yet. One day.
You know, it was a really awesome snare drum, or I guess it is. I'm not really sure, but it's Drum Workshop was doing it. They call this the Super Solid, and it's a steam bent drum shell. But they have this process that I guess they have enough money to be able to afford that nobody else does, where they take this wood, and I think when they steam it, it like increases like in size. It like swells up. And they calculate how it's gonna shrink down. So when they mold it and put it in the shape, they also like, I don't know if they like dry it or like put it in some type of a kiln or some type of thing, but they sort of like shrink it down after it's increased in size, and that just makes it more rigid. Like the old method is like you steam it and you wrap it around something and you kind of like clamp it all up and let it dry and glue, and it kind of stays there. But they do something different in the process of adding humidity and removing it that like allows it to like it like. I think on the video they said it goes down like to half its original size or something like that. So like you get this drum that looks like it's going to be like a 16 by like 8-inch drum, and it comes out to be like a 14 by 5 or something. So it just like loses so much of its mass in the process, but it makes this like wicked, solid, dense snare drum. And then they have these crazy CNC machines at Drum Workshop that it just, they, put it on this machine, and 40 minutes later it's routed into a perfect circle with perfect bearing edges and perfect lug holes. And it's like, you guys have billions of dollars to do this. Like,
I know, it's incredible. Yeah, them and Yamaha, Tama, they all have like these just incredible places to build drums. But but my hat's off to these guys just sweating it out in the garage. Just trying to make a name for themselves. It's very admirable because I can't do it. I'm very jealous that I can't do this stuff, but I respect it for sure.
I think as much as like I'd love to like buy some of these awesome looking snare drums. A part of me wants to be able to do it myself and like play my own, like the snare drums that I have that I say like, oh, I built that snare drum are things like I have a couple where I had like one of them is a Keller shell. So I have a Keller shell, and I bought some wood to like wrap around it as a finished wood. So it's not a maple finish, but I have one's mahogany. Then I do have a zebra wood and some of that kind of stuff. But they're, it's I guess to the same degree that like some of these major companies are calling it like a custom snare. They're just wrapping a Keller shell. But I don't know, that idea of going from the ground up, and for me that's going to be making that's my goal, I think, is to make a ply shell that's just absolutely beautiful. Something like as a company I really like their stuff, and it's that classic throwback stuff is CNC drums. They're just I can't even believe how good some of their stuff looks.
Yeah, and they make some just some different looking stuff, between the, some of those really thin, I would say by like 8 by 24-inch bass drums and the shallow.
It's like a tambourine drum kit.
Yeah, pretty much super shallow, toms but they have a great sound to them for sure.
Yeah. They do a lot of really neat stuff. And the other thing I really like that I think I really got into from looking at their drums was like a Coke bottle acrylic. That like green Coke bottle looks so cool.
Yeah. They make a couple of those that are just like, oh, I must have.
Yeah, there's another guy out there. He's not a drummer, but he does wood burning. I think it's
BC Burnings.
Yeah. He does some really awesome work on shells to make them look like you can buy just a regular goofy shell and give it to him, and he'll turn it into something awesome.
I think he's worked a lot with Love Custom Drums. I think he's done a couple of where he'll, I believe his name's Buddy Love, but he'll make the shells. I think they're stave shells, and he'll give them to that guy to do the burning on it.
Yeah,
which is super cool because I think they met through social media. Yeah,
they probably Instagram. I know BC Burning's fun to follow on Instagram because he just posts all sorts of stuff. Like he flipped his camper. Yeah. Like this dude's flipping a camper and posting. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just living off the grid, man. So.
Yeah. It's like go in there and just burn some wood, man. Get down with your bad self.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've covered custom drums well enough.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. I think the next episode, I'm going to talk about drum solos, and I want to, maybe you pick out your 3 favorite solos, and I'll pick out maybe my 3, and kind of just discuss why we like them. I think would be a super interesting.
That's fun for me to do in the meantime too. Yeah. I tell my wife, I'm like, no, it's research for the podcast. I have to watch drum solos all day.
Yeah. Like, are you up at 2 a.m. watching drum solos? Yeah.
Turn that down. I'm trying to watch. No. It's research.
It's research. Yeah. It's that's always a good excuse. Yeah, it's research.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why are you on Thomas' website again? I'm just researching. Yeah. But I think I'm curious to see what your 3 favorite drum solos are. I have a guess. Maybe one of them might be John Bonham, but
it could be.
It could be.
There's some other solos though that I'm just like, wow. Like, and I think almost like some of the more mainstream solos. It's almost like you're like, I've heard that solo so many times that it's kind of tired of it a little bit.
Yeah.
But some of the other ones are like, ooh.
Not naming any names, Neil Peart. But anyways.
Right.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
Maybe not. There's a bunch of I think when you record a solo, you it's not that you kill it, but you just kind of like, I don't know.
It's a moment in time that it's you could go 1,000 different ways with it. And I think planning, it's good to plan a drum solo, but I think there should be some spontaneity to it as well.
Yeah, there's that organic, like, play off the crowd thing going on too. And I'm that approach with just about everything. I'm that approach with the way I teach my classes too. I make some plans and I know what I'm aiming for and I know what my goals are, but at the same time, if somebody shows interest in one direction, I'm gonna cruise that way a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with teaching, you can't, if you stay too to the book, you're gonna lose people. You're like, hello, where'd you guys? Oh, right. Yes, yeah. So you got to switch it up a bit. But
I'm on the CNC drum site right now, just looking at their gallery,
like
drooling all over myself.
Yeah, like, how can I get them to send me something for free?
Oh God, they're like, if I had to start my own drum company, it would be something very similar because they go from shell up. They're just like, and they're making ply shells and they're making classy retro drums and they're doing rails and they're doing. They have some copper shells that I'm looking at right now. Going, oh man,
how can I convince my wife to get me one of these?
Right.
When is my birthday? When is my anniversary? When is Christmas? Or I know Christmas is. Well, yeah.
When's the 4th of July this year?
Yeah. It's like there's a 4th of July sale. You got to do it. You get 50% off. I mean, if I bought it next week, it would be full price.
Yeah.
Yeah. It never works. It never works.
No, never works.
It never works. You can make, no, they're going to give it to me for free. I just got to pay the shipping. No, okay, all right, sorry. But yeah. But so we'll reconvene in 2 weeks, talk about drum solos and catch up, and
I'm excited about the homework assignment.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. I had one drum solo I know is my favorite. Now it's just kind of trying to figure out, like, it doesn't have to be 3. So if it's like 4, 5, but I know of one that's my favorite. That's I'm super excited to tell everybody about, and a lot of people may not know about it, which might be interesting as well. So little teaser at the end. So
yeah.
But before I end, I just kind of on a somber note, I guess you could say, I just kind of want to talk about the tragic event in Orlando, or the tragic events. Gosh, Orlando it's not seen good times the past week.
Yeah.
And in between, the shooting of the Voice, the girl from The Voice, then you had the mass shooting at the Pulse, the club there, and then the kid that got eaten by that alligator at Disney. It's like, gosh, this is a rough week. But the mass shooting really got under my skin, and I don't know your stance on guns. I'm not really a big gun person. I'm very pro, gun control, and I know some people are like, oh, they freak out. But, I kind of just like, there's something that's got to be done. I think I'd be doing a disservice to these people, honor, and not bring it up, and having a platform to talk about it, and just kind of pretend it didn't happen, I think is wrong. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but
yeah. No, I definitely I feel for the families and the victims and the friends and everyone that's involved with that, and but yeah, I'm not a gun owner myself. I don't want to like infringe on anyone else's ability to own a gun if they are of sound mind and law-abiding citizen. But it seems like there's a lot of people that are not law-abiding or of sound mind that are getting access,
slipping through the cracks.
Right.
And it's just very because we're both the same age, and I remember when Columbine happened, and it was a horrific thing because we were both in high school when it happened, so it was very, very real to us. And to keep going, and you see Newtown and all these other shootings, you're like, ooh, this is not getting better. And you really just want to just shake people, like, come on, we got to do something. And people just don't talk. They just clam up and just like, oh, it didn't happen, I didn't see anything, just move on.
Yeah.
But I just kind of want to just let people know that it's there's got to be something done. Whether it's some simple gun control or just working better on mental health. And I've had people reach out to me saying they've had problems with depression. And it happens. People get depressed. So there's always outlets you can get help if you need it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And there's I think there's a culture issue. I mean, we have, if you watch not even just like action television, but regular programming and I'll say sometimes even political events. We have these people that are just like hate mongers and just like promote violence that are in the public eye too frequently. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the mental health issue. Like, we need to start really taking care of everybody as a whole, I think. And we've become so like desensitized to violence, and we live in such like a militarized country where like I know like the town I grew up in and the neighboring towns have like cannons and guns like in like the town square or whatever. And it's not a big deal. Like, we walk by, we're like, oh yeah, cannons and guns, they're kind of cool. And like, I remember being a kid, like sitting on top of a cannon. And then like, as a grown up, I'm like, yeah, I actually sat on top of a cannon.
Yeah. That was in this
I
battle.
was like 4, and I'm sitting on a cannon. Like these are weapons designed to blow people up, and like nobody had an issue with me sitting on one when I was 4.
Yeah.
Like it's like we're so desensitized to it, and I mean.
And then you also have that European perspective from your parents, growing up in England, where guns are not accessible or people don't have them really,
Right.
And it's a different culture for sure.
Yeah. I'm not making a prescription, but I could definitely work on some diagnosis, I guess. But
yeah, I hear you. But I just it being the worst thing since 9/11 when it came to people dying in mass quantities.
Right.
It's kind of jarring, and I think ignoring it, but it's doing those wonderful people a dishonor. So
yeah.
So this goes to them and to their families. Just say that we're thinking about you, and we hope we can move on and keep these things from happening in the future. Is what I'm trying to say. Be nice.
Yeah. Well said.
All right. Well, I hate to end it on a somber note like that, but it had to be said. Drums, yay!
I'm gonna go look at drum solos on YouTube right now.
There you go.
So
I'm gonna make myself happy again.
That'll put me in a better place.
Yeah, I hear you. But thank you, Adam, for joining me again. You always bring a wealth of knowledge. I'm like, I'm so happy that he knows how to describe some of this crap I don't know anything about. I know what a stave drum is, but I don't know the breakdown of it. And it's always nice to have someone who has perspective that's a little bit different than mine. So thank you, Adam, for always being part of this. I always tell my wife I'm always happy to have you on so we can bounce ideas and stuff off of each other. So
yeah, I think that works pretty well too.
Yeah, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from listeners saying, thank you for adding Adam to the podcast. It's a better show. So thank you, Adam, for making it a better show.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, we will see you guys in 2 weeks discussing drum solos. So I'll put up some videos or pictures on Instagram to kind of get other people's input. Not a lot of people commented on what kind of custom snare drums they wanted, which is really odd. I figured there'd be a lot of people, and it was mainly the drum companies that I tagged saying like, "Thanks for sharing." I'm like, "Dang it!" I was hoping they'd be like, "I love blah blah blah," but
yeah,
it is what it is. So you could post a picture of a T-Rex playing a drum solo and get 180 comments. I'm like, go figure. Oh well.
Right.
People are people. So all right. Well, I'll talk to you in 2 weeks, man. So you take it easy.
Yeah, you too. Have a good one.
All right, you too.